Okay. So, let us start that speech prosody. We have said that in the 8th week I will discuss about the speech prosody. So, this more or less all discussion will be related to the Fujisaki model, and also some work is been done for Bangla in my lab, that I also discuss. So, think about that what is speech prosody. First people will ask that what is prosody, what do you mean by prosody. Now, if you remember in speech synthesis what I said, that whatever the speech synthesis technique I have used, whether it is diphone base or unit selection base, the prosody is an important parameter, because prosody information is only if you want that speech should be natural communication, then without prosody the synthesis becomes unnatural. Okay. So, I want to implement speech prosody, means in synthesized speech I can use speech prosody. On the other hand, prosody can be used in speech recognition also, because speech signal not only carry the segmental information, but also there is a prosodic information which is necessary for which may be the meaningful for improve the speech recognition output, and prosody may be used in speaker and voice identification all the cases. So, we have discussed about the speech prosody first, then you can think about what kind of information processing we should use for what kind of application. Okay. Now, what is speech prosody? The prosody is defined as per the Fujisaki is the systematic organization of individual linguistic unit into an utterance or a coherent group of utterance in the process of speech production. So, the meaning is that if I want to say read a paragraph, or if I want to say a sentence, it is not arbitrary rhythm I have followed. I have followed some rhythm when I pronounce the sentence which is dictated by the syntactic or structures of that sentence. You may say that then people who do not know the text processing or who do not know the words alphabet, then also they speak with the speech prosody. Yes, because this is an acquired phenomena by a human being, but if you want to analyze it, you find there is a unique relationship between the structure of the sentence and the prosody. So, there is a relationship between the speech prosody. So, prosody, if I say it is a conveying some information which may not be linguistic, it also conveying the non-linguistics and paralinguistic information also. So, suppose if I say the emotion recognition, lot of people are working today in emotion recognition, speech emotion. So, emotion information is mainly on the speech prosody, because prosodic parameter is changed. That is why different times I produce different kind of emotional speech, because if you remember the content, what phoneme I have pronounced is the segmental features. Now, all the phoneme sound come together and with a melody, then we can complete speech. But how this melody, how this speech will varies across the sentence, it depends on the speech prosody. So, prosody is defined as systematic organization of individual linguistic unit into an utterance or coherent group of utterance in the process of speech production. So, if I say the prosody, then it is across the segmental boundary. That is why all the prosodic parameters are called suprasegmental parameters. So, what are the parameters which control the prosody? Mainly these 4 parameters. I am not going to the quality, the speech quality sometimes also referred to as speech prosodic parameter, but I am not going that. If I say the speech prosody depends on the pause, pause means sentence where I have stopped. If you see in between a word in continuous speech, there is a no boundary, because there is no silence. We never said one word, then we pause and then said the next word. We never say that way. But pause in appropriate position has an important role to convey the information. Okay. You know that that if I put the pause in arbitrary position, then speech become unnatural, and also the meaning of the speech may also change. So, pause as an important parameter in speech communications. Pause means where I have break the utterance. So, definition of, yes, it is very important you to know that sentence and utterance. In written language we say this is a sentence, in spoken language we say it is utterance. Utterance. That means it is not true that always that one sentence belongs to one utterance. It may not be all true. That utterance means within a single, without resetting this whole system, whatever I produce is called single utterance. After each and every utterance, the system is reset, means all prosodic parameters start from new things. Okay. So, that is prosodic break, I can say prosodic break is the utterance. So, if there is a long gap, generally if it is gap silence more than 300 millisecond, then you find that the prosodic parameter is resetted. So, I can say this is a utterance. So, suppose I record a long sentence, it may contain 3 or 4 utterance, because there may be a utterance, and after the utterance there is a more than 400 millisecond pause, then we can say this is a single utterance, although this is part of a same sentence. So, in spoken language the utterance is the chunk, in written language we take a sentence as a chunk. Okay. So, this is the sentence level and utterance level we can say. So, within the utterance there inside there is a pause. Okay. So, those pause has carry an important information, and the placement of the pause in spoken language is not arbitrary. There is a, depending on the structures of the utterance, language structures of the utterance, pause is determined by the human being itself. So, when we say we do not put the pause in arbitrary position. If we put it to arbitrary position, then the speech is unnatural and meaning may be changed. Okay. Then there is intonation or F0 modeling. If I say an utterance, throughout the utterance F0 is not constant. Fundamental frequency of the utterance is not constant. So, if I say, suppose I have a speech signal, I have a speech signal of 1 second. If I extracted the F0 for every 10 millisecond, if I have a 1 second utterance, then I found there will be a movement of the fundamental frequency, and the fundamental frequency is not continuous, because in utterance there may be a non-voice region. So, if the speech signal is non-voice, there will be no F0, because F0 is part of the vocal cord vibration. If the vocal cord vibration does not exist, that means there is a no F0. But if you see that F0 contour throughout the sentence, you find there is a movement of the F0, continuous movement of the F0 in a particular pattern. So, that pattern is called intonation of the utterance or F0 contour of that utterance. So, F0 is not flat for whole the signal, it is moving along the signal. And if I model it continuous model, using a spline curve, if I make it continuous, then I found the F0 is moving in a particular rhythm or particular pattern, that is called intonation. Okay. Then if you see here, if I show you in the speech, suppose this is a sentence. If I found the duration of each phoneme, each syllable, instead of phoneme I can define duration of the syllable. All duration of the syllables are not equal throughout the whole sentence. So, that means duration of the segmental property is changing along the utterance. I can say that utterance instead of sentence. So, along the utterance duration profile is changing, that is called duration of syllable or phoneme, whatever you can say, phoneme duration in term, you can model it in terms of syllable also. So, syllable duration are changing across the time. So, duration is an important parameter which convey the speech prosody. If I demonstrate you, if you repeat this, if you copy this duration and paste it again, if you change the duration, you find the prosody is changing. So, duration modeling, duration is also an important parameter which control the speech prosody. Okay. Loudness, amplitude, if you see the whole utterance, amplitude is not fixed. Amplitude, if I take the average amplitude of every 10 millisecond, if I plot it instead of unvoiced region, all voice region, you find the amplitude is moving. Sometimes it may fall or it may fall and again rise if there is a emphasis in the last words. Okay. So, there is an amplitude movement also, but people say that amplitude is not that much of important for prosody, because even if amplitude is equal, if you are able to model the duration f0 and pause, then I can convey the prosodic information of the speech. Okay. So, the prosodic parameters for the speech are pause, intonation or f0, duration and loudness. Okay. Amplitude model. Now, we discuss about one after another in modeling. So, here in we have done some work in pause modeling. If you see that, suppose there is a think about a paragraph, read out discourse, that I have reading a story written in, or I am reading in a page, something is written in one language, it may be English, it may be Bengali, it may be Hindi, I am reading that text. If I read that text, you find this kind of structures. Whole text has a larger discourse, every paragraph has a discourse segment. So, whole text has a discourse, depending on the discourse my voice quality will be changing. Suppose in some paragraph somebody is died in a story, next paragraph when I describing his that my intonation will be changed or my prosody will be changed on the next paragraph because of that pragmatic information. So, discourse is an upper level, spoken discourse, that depends on the whole story, that depends on the whole sentence or whole paragraph, whole text kind of things. Then there is a discourse in the segment, each paragraph has its own discourse, and after every paragraph pause is mandatory. Every paragraph we have a pause. Now, within a paragraph consists of certain sentences, few sentences, let us there is a 10 sentences. After every sentence we know there is a pause in speech, okay? And each sentence is consist of certain clause. After every clause pause is mandatory. If this pause is more than 300 millisecond, then I treated that clause is an utterance, or if it is less than 300 millisecond, then I can say those are not single utterance, but there is a pause in between the clause. So, after every clause pause is mandatory. A clause may consist of several phrases. So, I am breaking down in a written language processing and I try to correlate with the spoken language. So, every clause has a phrase. Now, every phrase can be modeled. I will show you in the when we prosody modeling. So, suppose there is a phrase 1, phrase 2, phrase 3. It might be often noticed that even though in written language there is a phrase 1 and phrase 2, but in spoken language it might be only consist of 2 phrases, 1 and 2 merged together make a one phrase and phrase 3 another one. So, we can say those are called prosodic phrase, that I will come later on, and those is called prosodic clause, and those is called prosodic sentence. So, prosodic clause may have a utterance. Okay. So, utterance, I can say this is utterance if this is more than 300 millisecond. If it is not, then clause 1 and clause 2 make a contain a prosodic utterance. Okay. Then phrase. So, prosodic phrase, every phrase may consist of several words. So, there will be written word W1, W2, W3, but you may have found that suppose there is a the prosodic phrase, that this is the linguistic phrase PP1, PP2, PP3, that is phrase based on the linguistic analysis of the written text. But if you analyze in spoken text, you find there may be a PP1 and PP2 merged together to form a single phrase, spoken phrase, which is called prosodic phrase. Then this is PP1 and this is PP2. Now, every phrase may consist of a several words W1, W2, W3, W4. Okay. Now, those are the written words. In spoken form, you may have found the W1 and W2 pronounced together. I will come later on. What do you mean by pronounced together? Pronounced together and form a prosodic word. Okay. So, a prosodic utterance, we say utterance, I start from utterance. In text it is a sentence, in spoken it is utterance. So, utterance consists of a prosodic clause. Prosodic clause consists of a prosodic phrase. Prosodic phrase consists of a prosodic word. Similarly, in text clause, sentence, clause, phrase, word in text processing. Okay, later on I will explain in one diagram. Now, the problem is that the pause, the occurrence of pause after every clause is mandatory, but if you found after every phrase pause may not be there or pause may be there. So, I have to make a model which can detect after which phrase pause is necessary and how much duration. So, I have to detect the occurrence of the pause in after phrase and the duration of that pause. If it is there is a pause, then what will be the duration? Now, what do you mean by pause? You can see what do you mean by pause. Okay. Let us see this sentence. I am thinking, so this is a sentence. If you analyze a sentence, you find after some utterance there is a pause, there is a silence, region of silence. So, that can define a pause. There may not be a region of silence, but what happened if you see there is a large movement of all prosodic parameters. So, maybe there is a deep F0 is contour is going down and then again going up. So, there is one kind of resetting of prosodic parameter duration F0. So, that can indicate that there is a break in speech chunk. So, that is called prosodic phrase. So, the occurrence probability of the physical pause, there may be a physical pause, there may not be a physical pause, but there may be a break of co-articulation or there may be a break of prosodic parameters. So, if there is a break of prosodic parameter or break of co-articulation may also be there. So, that can also define as a pause with 0 duration, but there is a co-articulation break that identify when we play the speech, that phenomena identifying me that this is the chunk of the speech. Okay. So, if after we have studied that kind of things, we found that factor affecting the occurrence and duration of a sentence medial pause, we call sentence medial pause, because at the end of a sentence pause is mandatory, at the end of a clause pause is mandatory, but within a clause after which phrase I should put the pause with how much duration is called sentence medial pause modeling. Okay. So, we take this parameter type of phrase, phrase length and distance between the current phrase and dependent counterpart. So, what we have done for Bengali, it may not be true for other language also, I do not know, we have not tried it. So, suppose I have a sentence, so suppose I have a phrase P1, P2, P3, P4, I have a 4 phrase, then it may be NP, it may be VP, it may be NP, I do not know. So, I detected that. then we find out the type of phrase an important parameter, then length of the P1 in terms of number of syllable, we measure in terms of number of syllable, and also whether this P1 dependent on P2 or not. Means if you see, I will show you, we have drawn a what kind of binary curve where we can say whether this phrase is dependent on this or not. If it is far away, suppose this phrase is depend on this phrase and this phrase is depends on this phrase, then the distance, in case of this distance will be 1 and in this case of this distance will be 2. So, if the distance increases, there is a probability of pause increases. Okay. So, we have take these three kinds of parameter, then we analyze like this. I can give you example like this. So, this example is by a Bengali example. You can see ঘনরামকে টুকরো টুকরো করে না কাটলে বোধ হয় তার রাগ যাবে না. So, this is a Bengali example. Now, if you see, this is W1, W2, W3, W4, W5, W6, W7, W8, W9, W10. Now, if you see, we have said these words is related to, directly related to যাবে না. So, this was related to কাটলে and this was related to করে, this was related to কাটলে. So, now if you see, this word is related to this word. So, distance is high. So, there is a high chance of probability of pause in here. This boundary, this word related to this word is very closely related. So, I cannot say that this probability of pause in here will be very less. Then this word is related to this word. So, probability of pause here is high, then probability of pause here is less, and like that way we have defined. We have done that things. You can read this paper, the paper is available, Bangla duration modeling, you can read this paper. So, what I would say that depending on those three parameters we have done, we have analyzed the what is the occurrence probability of pause in a read out text of a Bangla. So, Bangla we have collect read out sentences because we want the textual information must correlate with the spoken information. So, what we said, we take a written text, we can say that we have taken some sentences, those sentences are read by some speakers and then we analyze the pause and then we try to correlate what is the relations between those pause with these three parameters, then we realize these three parameters, then after analyzing we try to develop a linear model using these three factors, so that we can predict the pause. So, one is called occurrence probability prediction, whether for after this word or after this phrase there will be a pause or not, whether there will be a pause or not, whether there will be a pause or not. So, that we probability we have calculated. Okay. Then we try to linear regression analysis we have done, linear modeling we have done. Maybe it can be improved by non-linear modeling also, we have not done it, but you can do it non-linear modeling also. Then duration probability we have done, that find out the pause duration, again linear modeling we have done and we have calculated something and we have calculated the cumulative percentage error for prediction error in the for prediction pause prediction for pause duration, both prediction error we have calculated and we have reported in a papers. Now, if you see, there is an example in here also, if you listen this example that this thing, then you find that there is a two kinds of sentence I have synthesized. One is depending on the pause modeling, one is just simple concatenative synthesis. Then you find that if I use the pause model, it improves the clarity. So, I can say my pause model is now somewhat improve the synthesized speech. But if you think in today in all kinds of TTS which is used in HTS or HMM-based TTS system, this kind of modeling is not required because we have trained the system lot of original data. So, that means within the corpus there is a occurrence of pause which is already taken care by the HMM model. Okay. I will show you HMM based speech synthesis where pause and duration are within the, when we train the system, that is model. Okay. And also F0 somewhat it is model, but F0 also not model correctly. I will show you that what is the problem there and how it can be overcome. Okay. So, this is pause. Now, come to the F0, which is very important parameter, because if you see the F0, even if pause and duration, if you model F0 itself, then it can increase your clarity of the speech more. Okay. So, F0 modeling is an important part of this prosody modeling. So, I am discussing about the available this F0 model, and then details I will discuss about the Fujisaki F0 modeling. Okay. So, next lecture I start that F0 modeling. Okay.